was not meant to happen. This could not happen. This is happening.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we are back with a huge episode. A special episode with a couple of tricks and tips and a few new things we're going to be throwing your way. Here at the Coach's Somewhere on Fire, I want to give a big, quick shout out to all our new subscribers and followers who've been listening. Thank you so much for the support. We're going to keep on bringing out some excellent, exciting content coming up. As always, got the lads, Adam, Stephen, how are we feeling?
Feeling unreal. Couple of tips and tricks, I should say. But also a couple of welcome backs to you, Mr. James, who hasn't been here for a little while. Can't say we've missed you. We've replaced him with Brosk. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it today. So, yeah, good to have you back.
I don't blame you.
Well, I'm feeling fantastic. So it is nice to have you back, James. I don't know if you want to spread the big news. You did mention that we've got some new subscribers, including a little one. Welcome.
Yes.
James has recently become a father, so drum roll please for James. It's back in.
Drum roll.
Welcome.
Give the drum roll going again. Thank you very much.
Subscriber. He's got no choice but to subscribe, unfortunately.
Yes,
so
he's our number one fan. He's officially the coach's son.
The coach's son has finally been born.
Yes.
It's going to take a year and a half, but we've done it.
He's already been branded with that nickname. He's already the official coach's son. Poor kid. Yes, it's been a week and been a sleep loss, but it's been good.
About to say probably 7 days no sleep.
That's
even better.
right.
That's what you want. So you don't know what's going to come out of James's mouth today. So very excited.
It could be anything, exactly right. But the point is as well, I mean, he comes on international break, which is a good thing, I suppose, right? Because, but I mean, we're not getting any sleep anyway. We're watching the Premier League, so we're used to it.
You've got a bit of company now.
Well, that's the thing, right? Everyone I speak to is like, you're going to be used to it. You're up at all hours in the morning watching the soccer anyway, so you're going to be fine. Exactly right. We're used to it. We're well trained. But tonight, everybody, we're going to be obviously having a quick discussion about obviously the Socceroos being international break, their result last night against China, what's in store for them as well, what they've got coming up against them. And we've got a new exciting segment we're going to be bringing to you each episode as well that we're going to be throwing into the discussion. So, guys, Socceroos, 2-0 win away to China. Puts us in, I wouldn't say pole position for that second qualifying position, because there's still two big fixtures coming up in Japan at home and Saudi away. But surely from here, we take.
Well, it kind of leaves us, leaves it in our hands really. If we win both our games, we're through. If we don't, if we lose the first one, we're relying on other results. Obviously, we've got the big clash against Saudi Arabia. That could really come down to that one, or we could finish it off against Japan. And we also, you mentioned, James, that we've got a big new segment coming on later. I was just having a look at where the Socceroos are playing against Japan, which really could be a must-win game for them. And they'll be playing that game at Optus Stadium in Perth. Now, I want to throw it out to you guys. A must-win game for the Socceroos. Should they be playing the game at the most passionate, a ground where they think they will definitely have the upper hand, whether that's in Melbourne, Amy Park, back in Sydney where they played a week ago? Do you think they should be playing there, or are you happy with it being played at Optus Stadium over there in Perth?
Good question. I think for a game of that magnitude, I'd probably put it in Melbourne. I'd play it in Melbourne, but obviously Perth, they'll come in their numbers. I think they've obviously got big support over there. Anyway, and I think, like I said, it's in our hands. I mean, we don't want to be going to Saudi Arabia and having to get a result. That's going to be a tough issue because obviously Saudi Arabia is the third place team. we want to have it wrapped up. We can have it wrapped up with the result against Japan at home. Japan's obviously already qualified. They're through. Hopefully they rest a few of their players and don't bring their guns over, and we can get the result. I highly doubt they'll do that, though. I think they're going to make us work for it. I don't want to be going to Saudi Arabia having to get a result, especially considering Saudi Arabia are the ones that are trying to take our position. But in a long way of answering your question, I think Perth will definitely sharpen their numbers for sure. But I'd agree. I'd put that in Melbourne. I have to say, I think they've got a bit more fanatical supporters than us, especially here in Sydney. Especially the scenes we saw in Federation Square during the World Cup. Really paved the way for the rest of the country and the other cities to get out there and support the country during the World Cup.
Well, you think it being such a big game that people in Perth will turn up, and no doubt that they will. I'm just more concerned that they're playing at an oval stadium, a ground that's built for cricket, for AFL, not really for our rectangle sports. That's the only thing I'm really concerned about.
I think any football game needs to be played in a rectangle stadium, regardless.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What level it is or what type of game it is. I think every single game needs to be played in a rectangle stadium. That's just my 2 cents. I don't like the oval situation.
Yeah, you almost feel like you're too far away from the ground. But then again, Melbourne is a big stadium too, though. It's sort of the same sort of thing. But you could fit up to, depending on how many people, 70, 80,000, depending who comes. Japan's an exciting team, so get their own crowd as well.
That's like you said, the MCG.
It depends where you play it at. It depends if it's in Melbourne, it's either at the MCG or it's at Amy Park, which is a rectangle field. You'd rather the game be played there at Amy Park. If it's in Sydney, I wouldn't even have it at Homebush. You'd rather have it in the city at the new stadium, or even at Parramatta, at Combank. I think it'll be a bit more intimidating for the opposition.
Well, that's where they've got to weigh up, obviously, number of ticket sales versus obviously trying to qualify through to the World Cup. I would always pick do anything that we can to qualify through the World Cup as priority. And if that means playing at Brenda, that means playing at a local park to give us the biggest advantage, do that.
Well, they've got Marvel Stadium's an option as well. Nice looking stadium in the area that's
I like Marvel Stadium.
Yeah, it's not a bad spot.
But is Marvel...
Marvel's oval as well.
Yeah. Is it? Yeah, just a...
Marvel's oval. I've been playing at Amy. I've been playing at Amy in Melbourne. Rectangular stadium.
Either way, team has to show up on the day. See what happens. Well, there was positive signs out of the game.
We heard Bros the other week talk about how when Uruguay came here versus when the Socceroos went over there, like we treated them 5-star accommodation when they came here, and we went over there, they treated us like hell. And that's because they know they need to get through. They need to get through. It's a life or death situation over there. And we kind of need to put, maybe, I don't know if we'll get to that level ever, but we need to try and get there. And whatever we can do to qualify, we should be trying.
100%. And I think we need to understand the magnitude of this game against Japan. Like, we need to get a result. We need to win. I don't want to be going to Saudi Arabia having to win or draw in their backyard so they don't jump us in the qualifying position. I mean, obviously, third place goes to a playoff, but you'd rather just get the job done, get it done at home, and then we can relax and look forward to the World Cup in 2026.
And you're looking at a 14-hour flight as well, which is, not very small either.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's not if you don't get a result, mate, it's a long way on the way back. So,
but hey, we put ourselves in a good position compared to where we were when the group first started.
Last night wasn't a bad game, but we definitely relied on Matty Ryan, I think, to pull off some saves as well. One goal was obviously poor goalkeeping on their part, and we got lucky there. But Jackson Irvine's definitely been a standout the last 2 games as well, and he scored another goal last night. So it's definitely the holding our midfield there, and some positive signs. I think we have a strong squad. I think there's some decent depth as well. They're definitely relying on some senior players as well through the A-League as well, which has been good. And then talents, whatever they can bring in from Europe and stuff like that, they're taking advantage. So positive signs, but it's definitely an important game against Japan.
Well, on our bench yesterday we had Mitch Duke, Goodwin, Arzani, who could easily all be starting. And I think not really the performance, it's more the result. And I think that's something that Popovich probably knows. He doesn't care how we play as long as we get the result and we're through. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Especially this stage of the the tournament of the group. Just get the result. Do what you can to get the result. I mean, I'm sure every Australian Socceroo fan is not going to concern themselves if we play not terribly, but play, not the most attractive football, but get away with a 1-0 win that qualifies us to the World Cup. At this stage, I think that's where everyone's priorities are going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, no one's going to sit there and go, oh, we drew or we lost, and then we have to go and Saudi Arabia won. But hey, I was well entertained. No one's going to care about that. We want to get through it, relax, and look forward to the World Cup.
Yeah. I think Popovich actually played quite smart last night. I think conditions in China would have been quite rough with humidity and stuff like that. So China obviously played all of their subs quite early on in the game, especially when going 2-0 down quite early. And he was smart in bringing and leaving all those fresh players right until about the 65th minute. So he was pretty smart on bringing the players that he needed to on and some fresh legs and stuff like that. But it was a good run by the boys anyway. So put together the result. We'll take it. Another clean sheet too. So it's good.
Got the result that we needed. Got the result that we needed, absolutely.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to the World Cup. The World Cup is the, for me, I was thinking about it before, right? That's got to be the pinnacle. The number one thing that you want to compete in, you want to play in, you want to win is the World Cup. Forget about Champions League, Premier League, Serie A, La Liga, anything else you want to bring in, Euros, Asian Cup, African Cup of Nations, the American League as well. You want to win the World Cup. Everyone wants to win the World Cup. That's the pinnacle. That's the one that gives you the tingles that we're just watching and preparing for.
100%. 100%. Every year, when the World Cup's not on, people think, oh, no, I'd rather, my club team win this, win that. And then when the World Cup comes around, you're like, wow, this really is the pinnacle and nothing compares to this. Absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's unreal. Well, I've heard there was actually going to be some rumours, or there was some rumours coming out that they're going to introduce, very American of them, halftime entertainment.
Yeah.
Before we move on to our next topic, because obviously this could be a whole topic in itself, that could probably go into our next segment. Halftime entertainment. Now, I remember seeing a tweet years ago going, imagine if the FA Cup final had halftime entertainment, you're 1-0 down to, I can't remember what club they mentioned, but it was like, you're 1-0 down to so-and-so, and Flow Rider comes out to perform, as if you're going to actually care. Exactly right. I know, obviously, we're playing in America. They're going to try and Americanize, but at the end of the day, football is big enough as a sport. They've been doing things so well and as organically for so many years that people want a piece of it. Let it be. Fans have the passion. They're going to be too busy either dreading the second half, nervous for the second half, to worry about Flow Rider or whoever's going to be performing at half time and to be actually enjoying it. No one's going to care.
Get Flow Rider.
Hey, I love Flow Rider. Shout out to Flow Rider.
Yeah, get him on the floor.
That was just the tweet. The tweet I remember seeing years ago. I don't know. I'm not saying that he's going to be the performer. I've got no idea. The point is, nobody actually gives a shit about halftime entertainment. Nobody cares. I know, even just watching the soccer now, the Premier League, whether it's obviously World Cup, whatever it is, I'm too stressed and worried about the second half to go, I'm going to switch off and listen and dance to this song. No, I don't care. And speaking of, if I can bring back another thing, I can't remember, I think I mentioned it, I was going to say years ago on the pod, and pretty much Ken, because we've been doing this for over a year. I think it was Ken Sutcliffe. They were interviewing him as a Channel 9 reporter. I'm pretty sure it was him. Not a soccer fan at all. Not a football fan at all. Right? But he got sent to Germany in the World Cup to go do some coverage over there. And he said that football doesn't need its own entertainment because the fans bring it along themselves.
Yeah.
They've got their own songs, their chants, and everything like that. And he thought it was unbelievable. And even so, for someone who's not a fan of the sport, he loved it. And that's what we have over every other sport, is that passion.
Okay. Do you think, I don't know how long halftime is at the NFL. Football is 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Pretty much always smack bang on 15 minutes. Are they going to extend halftime just so they can do this show? Because by the time they roll out this stage, everyone gets on there, wire everyone up, and then take it away for the players to come back on, that's going to take 15 minutes itself.
Yeah.
So I really don't know how it's going to work. And another thing,
And what about the distractions?
I actually just looked it up. So the Super Bowl halftime show is 25 to 30 minutes long.
and you know what, if it goes over, they probably don't even care.
That's
Well,
such a stop
because
start
the
sport
entertainment's
anyway.
on.
I will say, obviously, this would just be the final or the opening game, correct?
I think it's just the
Yeah,
final.
Probably just final, yeah.
Or maybe also the opening game, I don't know. But
Can you imagine Flow Rider for every single game?
Why does it have to be Flow Rider?
Has to be.
But imagine the
you're
distractions.
actually
Imagine
forced to
the
like it.
players. Imagine the security guys trying to get the players off the field. So hurry up, mate! We've got to set up. Flow Riders are going to come on. Get off the field. No way.
Well, I
Rubbish.
actually just... Yeah, go on, Steve.
Yeah, I was going to say, in England, at halftime, half of the crowd goes inside, grabs one beer, and comes straight back out. Like, it takes them 15 minutes to get a beer down it, and then come back out. That means no one's going to be watching the halftime show anyway.
Exactly. People are going to be drinking to settle their nerves and their excitement for the second half, just talking and discussing about everything that happened in the first half, saying their own opinions and predictions for the second half. They're not going to be out there dancing and singing. Nor should they.
Another thing is, recently, the VAR issues where the footage is taking too long to look at, and I think players are then walking around the pitch for 5 to 10 minutes while they're waiting for a decision to come on, and they think that that might be the cause of some injuries that are happening now on the pitch. So say they're in the sheds at half time for 25 to 30 minutes. What do you think they're actually doing when they actually have to come on for another, 30 minutes to play again, or whatever they're playing at the time that they're coming on, 45 minutes to come on again? Could that be another risk of injury? Yes, it might be on the final, match of the tournament or whatever, but, it can just cause issues all over the place. But revenue is another thing, and they're going to look at it like it's a business, and they're going to make a ton of money from it, whoever they get playing. So
Players will love Flow Riders playing. They'll be in their sheds.
But again,
Team talk.
I mean,
The guy that knows he's not going to come on, he just stays
for
on
me,
the bench.
it's such an American mentality that people are going to love it. No one's actually going to love it. No one's going to buy into it. No one cares. Even people at the pubs watching the final or at home watching the final, they are not sitting there in front of the TV at half time watching the entertainment. No one cares.
you're almost forced to, but if it's on the screen, you're just going to leave it on for halftime anyway. So everyone's
Yeah,
going to
you'll leave
be
it off. You're
it
not going to
anyway.
be watching it.
But
Yeah,
how many times do you, at halftime of a game, whether that's you're watching rugby league, whether you're watching football, any other sport, at halftime, you sit there calmly and watch what's on the TV. You're talking to the people that you're with. You're going to get a drink. You're up. You're walking. You're not, even if you're watching on TV, you are not watching TV at halftime.
No.
You know what I think would be buzzing that we definitely tune in for? If they got, say, over the last 20 years of all previous World Cup songs, and whoever performed them all comes and performs them on the day.
Pre-game. Pre-game.
Unreal.
Yeah.
That's
Can you
fine.
imagine?
Not at half
Imagine.
time. Not at half time.
Yeah, only Flow Rider halftime. What do you want?
Big blow Flow Rider. I don't even know if he's
Flow
still.
Rider's getting way too much attention from the coaches signing here. Too much publicity, mate. Free publicity. If you don't like it.
Oh, his manager, his agents contacted us. We needed a way to try and slide him in.
No one's heard from him in years. We're just bringing him up now.
The ref's going to blow his whistle, baby. Whistle. Oh, God.
All right. Well, on that,
Flow.
we're going to introduce our new segment. That's right. We've got a new segment. And this segment's going to be called Controversy Corner. Cue the animations. I'm expecting now, obviously, on YouTube and Spotify.
Fireworks.
I was thinking of the Trent Alexander-Arnold, the quick corner into Origi footage to come up. That's quite,
Good corner.
I mean, Trent's a bit controversial in himself with the news that's coming out recently as well. So
But you blame him. You don't blame him.
we can bring that up in another episode because
Yeah,
controversy
absolutely.
corner. So what we're going to be discussing, guys, is obviously any unpopular opinions that we have, any controversial takes that we have. We're going to dive into them for you and nut them out. So we've got two today. We're going to share for you today. So I'll share my one first. So essentially, the question I'm posing to you guys, I want to ask you is that just like players have to be eligible to play for a national team, do you believe that the coach or head coach / manager also needs to be eligible for that nation?
Probably it's only really starting to come up again recently, obviously, with the Thomas Tuchel England scenario. It's a hard one, isn't it?
It's
Because
never been... I'll explain to you why. So I believe they should, right? And for many layers of reasons, right? Now, obviously, yeah, it's come up again. There's never been an actual rule from FIFA over the history of the sport that there needs to be, right? But I believe there needs to be. At the end of the day, people want to represent their country, right? And you have more passion, more fight if you're actually representing on all levels as a player and as a coach, right? And I think this will also help encourage local coaches to improve, to aim for something, right? Rather than a coach being outsourced. And I think in respect of tradition and competition, if Australia is going to a World Cup, you take Australia. Don't get me wrong, what Good City did for Australian football and stuff like that would not be matched. However, how unreal would it have been if it was an Australian coach? How much more passion would people have had to uphold a tradition that even the coach has to be eligible for this country? And I also look at it from a development point of view. There's so much talk around player development, right? Now, player development can only go so far without coaches. Okay, so we need better coaches to develop better players. This is another thing that's going to encourage better local coaches to continue in their career to be able to coach their national side. Once a coach goes, you know what, just like a player wants to reach the pinnacle, which we've all agreed that the World Cup is the pinnacle, a coach now goes, look, I'm not playing anymore. I want to reach the pinnacle of the sport, and that's the World Cup representing Australia, my country, right? Just like you would as a player. So I think as a development point of view, to develop coaches, which then in turn develop better players, giving these coaches better opportunities, the governing bodies will then be made accountable to help encourage and grow and improve these coaches, because they need to find a better coach from their own pool of coaches and managers, rather than just outsourcing from anyone. And I think, again, going back just to the tradition and the passion that you have for your own country, it would be better if people going there actually reflected the people that you're working with and working for. People mention that their football team represents them. The manager is such an important part of a football team that manager and coach needs to represent the people of that country as well.
I think it's almost like a double-edged sword now. I'm just going to use England as the example, right? Because it's come up recently again. So Thomas Tuchel's come in. It also came into light when the first game happened recently. Now, national anthem comes on, right? He's not singing. Of course he's not going to be singing. Everyone was waiting for him to bust out into song and dance. Yeah, right? Imagine. Just as like Superman rips off like an England jersey or something. And then but then he's brought in, right? Because now it's almost got to a point where Southgate just couldn't get the job done. So it's almost seemed like not a panicking scenario, but it's almost that he's come in because they just want to win now. That's all it is. Like, these guys have come so close so many times. You're almost just bringing him in to get the result. But the thing is, then you've got the other side of it with potential fans saying he's not going to follow in traditions. He's obviously just coming in to win. Is he coming in for genuine reasons? But he's obviously just been told one thing: you need to come in and get results, and that's what it is. So are then fans going to complain if he actually does win, or if things, go south a little bit? What are their reactions going to be actually when that eventually happens? But then when it was the whole part when Southgate actually announced that he was leaving, everyone was talking about Eddie Howe, and apparently he wasn't even contacted at all. So you kind of thinking to yourself, was this a plan actually all along? Was it the plan to get in someone that actually didn't have an English background the whole time? So then you brought up was hitting before he eventually went on. He also did it with South Korea as well, brought him to a semi-final. So I don't know, but something that you just, bound to accept nowadays that it might start to happen more often now, especially if Tuchel, brings home something for them. So,
but that's the thing, though. If he does win the World Cup, would it mean more for him to win the World Cup with his own nation? Look at the passion. The Argentinian coach was a Scaloni.
Yeah, best.
In tears, man.
Yeah.
Like that's going to go down in history on that footage. I mean, because he's not only done it like he would be dreaming about it just like a player would to win a World Cup for his nation, for his country, and he's done it as a coach. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it would mean so much more for an individual as well. You know what I mean? Stephen, what do you think? Do you think that the nation?
It'll mean so much more for the individual, but it'll also be an incredible story for everyone else, saying this person here has managed to galvanize a whole nother nation and lead them to a World Cup. It's not. I don't think it's something that they can just, say, okay, guys, from next year you have to have a manager from your own country. It's something that don't get me wrong, I really like the idea for that reason of what you said, the passion, doing it for your own country. If they're going to do it, they need to look at it in 8 years' time and say,
why
okay,
8 years' time?
Because people got their jobs now. People, and especially like you said, England just appointed Tuchel like a couple of months ago.
Why couldn't you just do, okay, well, the World Cup's coming up next year. After the World Cup, that's it. It's like done.
Okay, that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying it has to be like, in 10 years. I know I've said that, but I mean, like, it can't happen right now. Yes, pick a date in the future and that's it. Stick with it. I really like the idea, don't get me wrong, but it's not a fix that'll happen overnight.
So you agree, though, that the coach/manager needs to come from that country?
I think especially most bigger nations that have that footballing background, they kind of do that anyway. They look at Spain, you look at Italy, England up until, I guess England did have some managers in the past, but for the last how many years they've had Southgate, who was an English manager. I think if it wasn't Thomas Tuchel came in, because he's a German and the history with England, there wouldn't have been such an uproar like Adam was saying. If it was anyone else, like another big manager from Spain or wherever, they wouldn't have had a problem with it. I think for the larger nations, they should have a manager anyway in their ranks from their own country, good enough to lead their country to glory. And
that's what I mean. The governing body needs to be held accountable to actually pay some more attention to their actual coaches, because there could be some really good coaches in there that could actually take them there.
Yeah, and I've had a look into it, and the top 10 countries now, FIFA ranking, only three of them don't have a manager from their own country. And if you look at those countries, they're all countries that want immediate success, and then they've failed over the last 8 years. England, you got Portugal. They obviously want to get Ronaldo a World Cup, and Belgium, who we all think that they've underperformed, but they don't have managers from their own nation. And I think that's because what Adam said about instant success. But if they build to something in 4 years' time, 8 years' time, with their own managers, so a manager from their own country, really start to build something for the future, I think it'll be more beneficial for those countries.
You see, I don't think you can compare it to a club team. I think, if the way you're talking about obviously building towards that as a club team, that makes sense, right? Because you've got more time to actually implement those kind of things. But I think it would be an easier transition if there was an immediate change for international coaches. Yes, they still need time to develop and implement what what they require and what they need from the players and stuff like that. Don't get me wrong. Nothing happens overnight, especially even at an international level. But I think you can't compare it to a club team and go, oh, we need 4 years or 3 years. You know what I mean? It's a completely different kettle of fish. I think you can turn the tap on and off with international football and make an immediate change and make an immediate difference. Absolutely.
Well, going back to maybe England, do you think they thought about it and they thought, well, we've just gone through 3 English managers, still haven't won anything, and they got to a point where they said maybe they just try something different? Yeah, had Allardyce real fast before Southgate for a ring period tied, and then they even had Carsley just in now for a interim position. But, if that went well for him, they maybe would have kept him around. But maybe it was like a panicking thing too. I don't know.
If there was a rule imposed that they have to pick someone locally or they're eligible, right, like players are, they have to be eligible to play for that nation, they would start looking at these, these people with a bit more thought and then start to look further down the track to go, okay, what are we actually doing for our nation? They'll actually be held more accountable rather than just going to the open market and picking the best coach available at the time. Yeah, they would actually go, we need to start developing our coaches. Which then, again, that in turn develops the players as well, because they obviously got better coaches.
Yeah. The story would just be unbelievable if it was someone from their own nation. Like you had mentioned before, Argentinian coach, Euros last year, Luis de la Fuente from Spain, he did it with the 19s, 21s, and then he managed to do it with the men's squad, right? So someone who's accomplished all that and they're from that specific nation is unbelievable. That's stuff you remember. But yeah, exactly right. So it does happen. Celebrations-wise, what's it going to look like for Tuchel, right? And then I even read something that, kind of absurd, but then do you even have to look at someone that maybe has a dual citizenship? Do you go as far as that?
Well, I would keep it as simple as whatever makes a player eligible for a nation, the same rules apply for a coach, right? So obviously you got players that weren't born in the country that they're representing, but they're eligible through family, visa, whatever it may be. I'd keep the same rule.
Yeah.
And haven't played or coached, managed for another country before. Like a player, if you've played a professional game, you can't go play for another country.
You can't just shop and change.
How's it going to?
Yeah, correct. And then also on top of that, he's obviously bringing his whole coaching squad with him, which I'm sure there's probably no one from England descent in that coaching squad as well.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I'm watching the King Otto documentary about Greece winning the 2004 Euros and having Otto Rehhagel as a German coach, right? He had to bring in a Greek interpreter because the message that he was trying to convey onto the players were not hitting home. And it wasn't that the interpreter, who was also a coach who knew German and Greek, was saying a different message. He was just saying it in a different way to which the Greeks would understand it. Because the way that the Germans speak and take on information is different to how the Greeks would take on information. So he needed someone as a middleman to not change the message, but change the way the message being portrayed to the players so they can understand it. And I think this is probably maybe what's going to happen with Thomas Tuchel, because he's obviously grown up in different characteristics and behaviours and whatnot bred in Germany. And the English players are probably used to hearing it in a different manner, in a different way. Don't get me wrong, the world is very much different in these days where players play in different countries and speak to different nationalities all the time. However, I still think it'd be a lot easier if you actually have that sense of familiarity and home as a coach, as a player, when you go into that camp, that you're going... Because when you travel into other countries, play against other countries, you really rely on your upbringing, your background, and where you're from. And you really become proud of where you grew up and where you're from. And you get that sense of familiarity as soon as you meet up with these people. And all of a sudden, you've got your coach speaking a completely different language. You don't have that kind of homecoming that you would want to.
Here's a good point, because then you also do hear people talk about, or the players, when Capello was with the England squad and saying they didn't have the best experience when they first came into that. So
correct.
It's a similar environment, but then also some people played under Tuchel at Chelsea and, when he had his time. So,
but the thing is, what Tuchel manages England now, whether they win or don't win, doesn't matter. 4 years down the track, he goes and coaches Germany.
Yeah, that's true.
How the English fans go? What happens then?
Yeah,
And what if
true.
imagine he wins it? Imagine how he would react winning it with both countries. How much more he would react winning it with Germany.
Not
Nothing
wrong.
against that.
But why would the England fans care about that? Like they've won the World Cup with him.
Yeah, that's where I think it would get to the point where it
wouldn't you
would just
think
be
they'll
about a trophy.
They'll be more disappointed about the manager that they've currently got, who they didn't win with.
Because football fans will always find the smallest dent in another fan's armour to hit them with, and they will not say that trophy was made in England. They will not say that trophy was that football was brought back home by an Englishman. All the Germans will have something to say that a German brought back football to their homeland. That's why.
Yeah,
and as much as the English would say, doesn't matter, we won the World Cup, Germany have won so many more World Cups, and they'll still say you had to rely on a German to do it for you. And as much as a person will have a brave face and say, oh, I don't care about that, deep down and inside, they will. 100%.
Going back to the point where you're saying turning it off, on and off like a tap, right? And me saying it's something that they should build to for in the future, pick a date later down the track. I think it'll affect some of the middle-ranked teams and smaller-ranked teams more in the immediate effect if it were to change it today, even next year, because you've got teams like Greece who haven't been to a World Cup or major tournament in 12 years, maybe even more, I don't even know now. They haven't had a Greek manager for how long? I couldn't even tell you who the last Greek manager was. They got, I think they got a Serb at the moment. They had Poyet before that, who's Uruguayan. They had, I think maybe it was Santos, who won it with Portugal.
But then the question, then you're right. But then the question for those countries is, how have you been looking after, and how have you been developing your coaches? If you are in such a dire situation, how have you been looking after your coaches? The question goes on, again, the football and governing bodies of those nations. Not on the people, not on the players. It goes on the governing body to say, hang on, if you haven't got a coach right now that can step in, I'm not saying to go in and do an unbelievable job, but to do a job, if you haven't got someone, what have you been doing as a governing body? That's where the question lies. And they should learn from that. Maybe it's a lesson that needs to be learned. Maybe it's something that they need to be hit and hurt and felt for them to then change their ways to go, we need to start doing better. And then again, the result of that, better coaches will then bring better players.
Hard one, isn't it? I think it's, you'll get fans like how you're specifying, James, and how they'd want to stick with tradition, and then you just got people that just want to see silverware. So,
my vote is for,
but unless they put down a
the eligibility
rule, I think
my
unless
vote
they
is
make
for
it,
eligibility rule.
something really stick, then I actually think this is going to be happening more often now. Especially if Tuchel sees success, I think it's going to happen more often.
It's been happening forever.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing is, there's been 22 World Cups, and every single World Cup winning nation has had a manager from that country. So it works. It works. But again, they're the bigger footballing nations that have done it. And even if you combine the World Cup and the Euros, and there's only one where the manager hasn't been from that nation, and that's obviously Greece in 2004.
Exactly.
Well, a little, like a rumor that went around, right? Madrid was having so much success, and there were talks about Ancelotti taking over the Brazilian squad. Italian background said, right? You'd think like it's sort of crazy, especially in maybe Italians right now in times of crisis where actually our national team's actually not doing that great. So you would think maybe it would liaise with that a little bit more than that, but I don't know. That was a rumor ran around. He sort of denied it pretty fast, but if that something happens down the line, I don't know. It's another situation.
If you look back at England, you can't really pinpoint a really successful English manager. I don't even think an English manager has won the Premier League before.
No, I don't think so. Roy Hodgson was before Allardyce, then it was Allardyce, and then Southgate. So it was Capello before that.
Are we opening another can of worms there? Like about its own league in each country. Should
Yeah.
they be having more English managers coaching these teams?
That's probably a different topic in discussion in itself. I think.
But do you think
clubs,
it affects it?
I
Do you
think
think it affects how the national team goes?
I think because there's no emphasis on the national team having an English coach, development on coaches is slightly overlooked. Subconsciously, it's slightly overlooked, which could then affect the English league because there's not as many good coaches potentially coming through, which means, again, clubs are having to outsource. I'm all for clubs outsourcing because any nationality player can play in the Premier League, for example. But I think by having this rule and establishing this rule, you've also got something for the local coaches to work and strive for and prove themselves for. And they can go to their club. And then they've got options. Let's say they're absolutely killing it in the championship and they've got a Premier League club knocking on the door, but then they've got the World Cup team, the international team knocking on the door as well. All of a sudden, you've got options for more local coaches because they've got more things they can strive for, rather than going, well, look, I'm just going to be a league coach for my career. I'm not even going to get a look in at the World Cup squad because I know the FA is just going to pick the next best thing that's available.
I wonder also if, as a coach, they'd find it more appealing to take over a national team role than actually a club team on the full-time season going off. Because they've obviously big breaks in between each time they're actually playing, besides international friendlies and qualifiers and stuff. But depending on what pay and stuff is like, who knows? But
I think that comes with age. I think a lot of coaches would prefer to coach a national team later in their careers. Obviously, the workload is a lot less.
Yeah.
But I think it would come with age. But again, you probably want to have a more experienced coach on the sidelines of your national team. Someone that's been through everything with their clubs first.
What about Paul Poch going down to the US and losing against Panama? It's a bad start for him as well. I don't think they haven't, in their last, I think 5 or 6 run-ins, they actually haven't beat Panama, but they lost in the 93rd minute or something.
Yeah, look, I mean, maybe his eyes are just having a look at the Spurs job. It could be very distracted with the Spurs
Come
job.
back real fast.
So you never know.
Well, there you go.
Anymore,
Well, guys, that was the controversy corner for this week.
I enjoyed that. That was good.
Controversial, unpopular opinions. We want to hear your takes on it as well. What do you think the ruling should be or what it should go forward? But we've come to that time. The fans' favourite time of the episode.
That's been a while.
The coach's son nomination. I mean, what have you guys? I'll let you guys go first. The nomination and why.
Buzzing. All right, well, I'm going to kick off because one came to the top of my head already. And when we first started this podcast, this player used to cop a lot of flack, and he's sort of come back into the limelight now for me. It was the second game, Portugal versus Denmark. Ronaldo actually steps up for a penalty. And if you look at it from another angle, he missed. But Bruno Fernandes, before he kicked, celebrated and put his hands in the air. And then you should have seen as soon as he missed, hands on his head down, real fast. So my coach's son is Bruno Fernandes. They're not celebrate too early, mate. They're not come back to bite you. So, yeah, Bruno Fernandes. He's my coach's son.
Bruno Fernandes.
I've got a good one which kind of ties in with what we've been talking about as well. After watching most of Australia last night against China, where there's how many people are in China? 2 billion people?
Billions.
Yeah, 2 billion people in China. They had a bloke come off the bench who was born in Brazil, and it just did not look right. It did not look right. Like,
what was his name? Jorginho?
Serginho?
That's
wild.
Wild.
And for that reason, he's my coach's son.
Man, you could put Gino at the end of anything these days. How good.
Well, I'm going to go also with the China-Australia game. And also mentioning a player, inspired by a player that we have nominated quite a few times in the Premier League. No, it is not Darwin Núñez. It is the Chinese Darwin Núñez. Yuning Zhang. I just love the fact that he wears the number 9, he plays up front, and he's got the long hair, the bun pulled back. Whoa, love it. Here's my coach's son nomination.
buzzing.
this week.
How good. How good.
I could have
Just
said the
reading
kickoff
up
for that.
quickly, Serginho was born in Brazil, obviously. Became a citizen of China 13th of March 2025. 13 days ago.
There you go. Eligible. If that's what you've got to do, obviously there would have been some fast track ways to get him through for sure.
Reversing Australia, let's suss out the streets, see if we can find anyone. How funny.
Bravo.
That's
Love
so
it.
good. All right. Yeah, well, this comes to an end. Like James said, let us know what you thought about our new segment.
And let us know what you think about the question. Should managers and coaches be eligible like players to manage their national team?
Absolutely. That was great, boys. Good chat. Loved it. We'll be back next week, better than ever. So make sure you like and subscribe. And yeah, look out.
See you again soon.
Thanks.
Come and say hello.
Take care. Ciao, ciao.
This was not meant to happen.